We're going to start. Good morning. Sorry, start that way. Morning. Thanks for coming. Oh, morning. Thanks for coming. We're going to start by sitting with on two blocks with a yoga pata, yoga strap, yoga belt. Very simply made into a loop. The brief history of the yoga belt. Here it goes. We find pictorial references to yoga belts going back over 2,000 years. We find in iconography where a yogi is represented. We know it's a yogi because they're wearing a yoga belt. We find the earliest textual reference to someone wearing a yoga belt being a Buddhist reference. Commonly misunderstood is how foundational Buddhism is in what we now call yoga. In fact, so much so that some of the early Brahmins called the Buddhist practices yoga before Buddhists did. And that was it. They would say, oh, Buddhists do yoga. So in the Pali Canon, in a text that describes and goes into more detail about the Abhidhamma, welcome. You could go there. Perfect. Good to see you. The Abhidhamma, oh yeah, you could just pull it in a little bit this way. If it is, I don't know if it is it dripping there? If it is, maybe I'll move and turn the electricity off. Electricity and water is no. Okay. So in that Abhidhamma text, we hear of a monk who rips off a bit of his robe and uses it as a yoga pata. Anyway, so I'm just infusing you for the yoga pata, I hope. Palms up, breathing through the nose. So this pose is Sukhasana. Sukhasana. And many yoga texts tell us that you should just choose one or two postures for your practice. And the practice is one of stillness, which I think needs some explanation. Because stillness, if you hear stillness and you think yogis are supposed to be still, you might go sort of alarmed, like tense. But that's not what's meant here. Finding stillness is finding, as it were, the still point amongst all the busyness, which means you don't have to sort the busyness out. You just learn to sort of respect it and see it as it really is. Jaw soft, buttocks relaxed. Notice any correlation between the buttocks and the breath. In other words, any gripping in the breath, any gripping in the buttocks. And then bring your hands to prayer position, Anjali Mudra. Breathe through your nose if you can. It hydrates, it filters, it warms, it slows the incoming breath. And continue to investigate gripping, graha, in the body-mind, breath. Because most of us have anticipation based on views and opinions that then manifests in the body and the breath. So our investigation as yogins is to notice tension, tightness, gripping, and its equation with, say, tension in the adductors with tension in the breath. Adductors are inner thigh muscles. Many of us have heard the word vinyasa, popularized by the Ashtanga Vinyasa schools, and then it's splintered out into a kajillion vinyasa schools. The word vinyasa comes from nyasa. V is just an addition which augments the word in a couple of ways. Nyasa is a practice that yogis used to do, and it means placement, to place, nyasa. Vinyasa, usually V means to separate, so separate from placement. So vinyasa is like we are not landing anywhere for long, or it can, in certain situations, mean to really place. So you can choose which you like. But we're going to do the traditional yoga practice of nyasa, placement of a mantra, and therefore placement of an energetic signature, which is personified as a deity. In this case, the deity who is right behind me. It's like a pantomime, just behind me. And that is Tara. They commonly mispronounced Tara. So her bija, her zip file, as it were, is tongue, T-A-M. T-A-M. But the M is just a nasal, like a nasal in the word bank, it's like tongue. So we're going to chant that 3 times, but we're imagining we're placing that mantra. A mantra is more the deity than the personified form is. It's called a murti. We're going to chant that 3 times together and place that, and that will be there all day. And the reason we're doing it is to orientate ourselves back to the heart. And it's worth knowing that Tara represents an enormously benign, generous, loving quality. So take a deep breath in, inhale. Ta. Two more, of course. Ta. Last one really loud. And then a deep breath in with a deep breath out like a sigh. And a few more deep breaths. So that's placed. So just feel that placement, that nyasa, as you continue to breathe. That's placed. So a very powerful yoga practice is simply the practice of nyasa. So a few more deep breaths. Plenty to do in one pose. We can say the pose isn't complete until all resistance is dissolved or brought into agreement in one way or another. Whether it be mental resistance, boredom, restless, uncertainty, or the whole list of obstacles given in the yoga texts. Or whether it be physical resistance in terms of body feeling tight, like the buttocks gripping or the thighs gripping. Or whether it be respiratory resistance, when the breath hasn't, yet embraced the moment. It's the breath that embraces the moment or rejects it. That's what, that's how it goes. Release your hands from prayer. Take off your pata. Recross your legs. And reputterize yourself. I just made up that word, reputterize. So often you'll see a yoga pata worn in various different ways. They still use them in Bhutan and Tibet. This is one way that it can be used. It's there to yama, that is to curb tendencies in the body-mind. So when we limit tendencies in the body-mind through, all traditions have this, whether it's Jainism, Buddhism, Shaivism, they all have precepts. Often the Indian traditions are called precept and practice. That's kind of what they are. So you got this limitation from restlessness. It might still be there, but normally if restlessness arises, we might feed it by it suggests things to do, restless things to do, like quickly get up and check your emails, or there's a shelf over there that needs dusting. This is just a description of my life anyway. So The whole point is to limit that, and then you're not feeding it, and that's not. It's completely benign necessarily. Whether you read the Sankhya Karika or the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, or whether you read a Buddhist text from the Yogacara tradition, and the relationship to conditioned existence, thoughts, cravings, desires, aversions, is spacious. It's always just like accommodating. Now, I'm sure you'll know this, but have a look through your day to day. When in every moment of your day, today and every day, but just observe it today, you'll be saying no or yes to each different situation. And there's no middle ground. It's just no or yes. Like maybe is a sort of no, with your breath. And for example, there's an imaginary scenario that I've never been in. I imagine that people who work in offices, because I've seen them on television sets, people who work in offices have a water cooler somewhere in the office, and it's somewhere that people might bump into each other, I imagine. I could be wrong. And maybe you're at the water cooler getting a cup of water, one of those paper cones maybe of water, and someone comes up to the water cooler, you see them coming across the office, and it's someone you don't like that much. How do you breathe? You talk to them because you've got to be civil, but how's the breath? Right? Shallow. Now imagine a different scenario. You're at the water cooler, you're like super favorite person. It's not a lusty thing, it's just like you just like them a lot. You feel comfortable with them. You really trust them. They come up, how do you breathe? They talk to you with kindness, you really enjoy their presence. Right? Okay. So that's saying no or yes for the breath. Right now, we're doing the same. To this body sensation, these body sensations, this breath, the room we're in, our own thoughts, saying no or yes. In yoga, we encourage yes, whether that be regarding thoughts, feelings, emotions, or whatever. I'm not saying necessarily that should be towards the person at the water cooler, because you may have good reasons to be wary of some people. Okay, wiggle the fingers. Take your pata, do it a little tighter, hook your thumbs into it, and making sure you don't bash yourself with the tail of the belt. Raise the belt up. Excuse me. And then push outwardly or press outwardly, suck in the tummy. Gripping, grasping, grabbing are overtly in all traditions. It doesn't matter whether it's Jainism, Buddhism, Shaivism, Vaishnavism. All traditions, gripping, grasping, grabbing, apart from the Vedic, original Vedic tradition, is discouraged. In yoga traditions, in other words. So we use words like aparigraha, empty of grasping. So in other words, when you're raising your arms up and you're looking for lift and height, it doesn't come with that extra little bit of sort of craving, kind of needing, wanting. It's really just more, it's definitely strong, investigative, awake, but it's not tense or tight. Some people use Patanjali's Sthira Sukham Asanam to help describe the attitude and postures, although Patanjali obviously didn't know about any of the postures we do now. Okay. So you might sway. All you're looking for is like agreement, which is a form of love in the present moment. We have Tara in the room, we've invoked her, we've placed her in our heart. So love, if you're going to say one word about Tara, it's like love or compassion. Okay, you can bring the strap down. I quite enjoy that actually, but might not want to do that all day long. We're going to lay down on our backs. I'm going to suggest wisely, a neatly folded blanket under your head. And I think everyone's got a neatly folded blanket already, I hope. Oh, I just realized I haven't said this yet to some of you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Just got to make sure I do that. Okay. Happy New Year. Lay on your back and legs bent, soles of the feet on the floor. I'll move the mic. Supta Padangusthasana. Let me pronounce that correctly. Supta Padangusthasana. Bit nerdy, that. Okay. So open that loop up. It's in the belt. How far? Well, it's going to depend on each different person because you're going to put the whole loop. And just check that you know what I'm talking about. I'll just show you because sometimes people get confused with a whole loop like that goes on your foot. So you end up with two stirrups. So how long those stirrups are depend on several factors. One, how long your legs are. Two, how long your arms are. How long your torso is. How open your hamstrings are. And so on. We want our arms straight and the legs straight. We're going to keep the lower leg bent for now and take a breath or two. Notice if there's any upadana, as it's called in Buddhism. Upadana means reaching out. It literally means fuel in Sanskrit. Upadana just means fuel. But it's nearly always translated by Buddhists who you may have met around the Buddhist center. They're quite nice people, Buddhists. They love biscuits and tea. So, but they often translate upadana as reaching out. So if you feel any tendencies to reach out, that is for the next moment. You know, if there's anticipation, that's your practice as a yogin, is to notice that reaching out, not sort of go against it, but it's called kaivalyam. Let it sort of do its thing, but don't feel that you're pulled by it. You know, you stay centered. Now flex up the other hip, that is lift up the other leg, the one that doesn't have the strap. Keep breathing through your nose. And then we're going to skim the heel like you might skim a stone. So it touches the floor, lifts and travels, touches the floor, lifts and travels, touches, etc. until the leg is straight, but with integration. Belur Krishnamacharya Sundarika Iyengar, in other words, BKS Iyengar, used to say that his yoga was about feeling into each and every part of the body. Each and every part of the body. And I'm a big fan of that. I think that's a really great way to practice. So here and now, it's our breath, our levels of calmness, and our interest that drive the play that yogis have always been encouraged to engage with, the play that brings awakeness to areas like the inner groin. Let's talk about the inner groin of the lower leg. Now, if you grip and grasp and grab, if you go shallow in the breath, it retracts your nervous system. But if you deep breathe, it expands your nervous system. So I noticed there's a course here at the Buddhist Center. I think it's a course with one of the order members coming up soon on a practice called the Metta Bhavana. And in the little trail that she did, she said it's impossible to really feel metta unless you're relaxed. I'm paraphrasing, but you know, because your nervous system, if it's in fight or flight, it can't feel metta. And metta is what expands your consciousness out. It's what allows your nerves to talk to your muscles. So move in ways that are enjoyable. Breathe fully, freely. Breathe fully and freely. Relax areas that don't need to be tense, like your neck. And notice the correlation between calmness and connection. The calmer you become, the more freely you breathe, the more you can connect to areas like the inner groin of the lower leg and look for openness there. That's the insertion of this psoas, of course. Okay, if you want, we can do a fantastic aeronautical display now by swapping which leg is in the strap in midair. Spectators will be wowed, and bring the leg back down to the sole of the foot on the floor, so it's like you were before. And take a deep breath. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Jaw soft, eyes soft. And again, observe the neck, because it's an indicator of gripping, grasping, grabbing. If the chin is pulled back at all towards the forehead, that indicates, of course, tension. And that tension, of course, indicates upadana. And because what we need to deal with is now and not in any future, even in a sort of immediate sort of future, and the only way we can connect with now, which is all we need to know and all we can know, is to relax. Relax the neck, relax the shoulders, relax anything that's anticipating. And instead, breathe, explore, and it's spontaneous. Yoga is described by all yoga teachings of yoga texts before 150 years ago. All yoga teachings as this sort of spontaneous experience. Flex up your bent leg, your lower leg, and skim the heel like you would skim a stone. So it touches the floor, lifts and travels, touches the floor. And the idea of moving like this is that as the back of the leg extends, energy to the mind of the person who's relaxed, the energy draws up the front of the leg and invigorates with the leg with prana, which is a sort of transpersonal intelligence. There you go, I said it. So prana is a sort of transpersonal intelligence that's recognized by absolutely all in South Asian soteriologies, very much so by Buddhism, for example. We find many, many Buddhist schools teaching energy practices, whether they be true core or something else. Deep breath, soft eyes. Explore the inner groin, and remember that gripping, grasping, grabbing will contract the nerves and the ability for the nerves to connect to the muscles. Whereas sukha, easefulness, will expand the nerves. So it's a fine line to walk as you explore to maintain this sense of flowing, relaxed attention, flowing. A sort of associate and slight friend. I don't know them that well. I know them pretty well. Has just opened a yoga studio in Hove. I think it's called Flow State. I think it's called. Lovely name. Well done, Kali. Lovely name. Because that's what we're looking for in yoga, flow state. Okay, bend your lower leg, release your upper leg. Catch your breath. That means take a deliberate deep breath. Followed by another. Followed by another. So when the breath flows, this indicates something important. That the yogin is beginning to release the tight fist of grasping, as it's put in a poem by a Tibetan monk. Now we're going to open the strap up a little bit and stay with the flowingness of the breath. We're going to open the strap up a little bit. And having done that, it should be able to go loop around both your feet together. Where we're going for is the front of the heels. Right? And what the front of the heels means is where the heels intersect with the foot arches. Now here you might find spontaneity, sahaja, arising, such as tail wagging, So I find it a little bit interesting. Chinese astrology is quite interesting. I just had acupuncture a couple of days ago with Dr. Sun, who, by the way, is a rabbit in Chinese astrology, which I was very pleased to hear because I'm a dog and apparently they get on super well, rabbits and dogs. So I was already, in a good mood with Dr. Sun. Anyway, I probably get on with all of your Chinese years. If you know your Chinese year, you know you've got a tail. Even the snake kind of is a tail. But you might be a rat or a horse or a pig or a rabbit or a dog or a dragon or I've forgotten your monkey, goat. Thank you. Don't want to miss anybody's out. Have I missed yours? No? Okay, good. So anyway, whatever tail you got, wag it like that, right? If you're a rabbit, it's quite nice to have a rabbit tail because rabbits move their tails real cute. Or a dog or whatever, just intuitively. Breathing easy. Jaw soft. Now, some people, as they relax, find that the lower back and the back muscles soften enough for them to just lift the pelvis off the floor, right? So allow that to happen if you want. The skill of a yogin is not the willingness to pull their legs as far as they possibly can, no matter what. It's exactly in the name. The skill of the yogin is in yoga. Their sense of union of body, brain, and breath in whatever they're doing. So if you pull too far, too fast, that can cause disunion. Ayoga is called. Ayoga. So we want integration at every stage. And that takes slowing down a bit, some honesty and breath listening. Slowing down a bit takes breath listening. So this is sometimes called Urdhva Mukha Paschimottanasana. Okay, wherever we are at, keep soft, listen and respond, and begin to release the legs from that situation, let's call it. Bring your feet back down to the floor. Let me hear you take a deep breath in with a deep breath out like a sigh. Yeah, and then another and another. It's inarguable, really, that the breath is the central part of yoga practice. I'm sure that no yogi would disagree with that. The breath is the central part of our yoga practice. So the breath should come and go and flow. And the breath indicates our levels of openness regarding the present moment. Okay, roll over and face towards this side of the room. And prop yourself up on your forearm. I'm going to roll up my sleeve for this because I like to get the clearest feedback I can. So clothing moving, because I wear different clothes most days, although I did wear this top yesterday. You don't get to really know the movements, but with your own skin, it's more reliable, although, of course, that changes very sadly, and the elastin goes. Anyway, one leg behind you, like this, and breathe through your nose. Great, perfect. And then we're going to very calmly lift up, very calmly. You might want to keep your fingers on the floor, or you might raise your arm up. You might lift the heel up. We want a sense of flow and breath. So flow is spontaneity. There are no exact instructions in any yoga text about the postures, and in many yoga texts there are no postures. But where there are, the instructions are very vague. But the purpose is not vague. Absorption. Okay, calmly, slowly, I suggest, come back down. Draw your knees up, come up from the side. Yeah, we're going to do the other side. You guessed it. You're absolutely right. The elbow is a little forwards of the shoulder. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, you probably aren't, because your world doesn't orbit around me as my world does, but you might be wondering, why, Jim, are you wearing this marvelous neckerchief? It's my look for this year. I saw Daniel Craig do it in that film Knives Out, And I thought, I'm having that. It's my look for this year. Watch out for more negatives. Okay. Once a new romantic, always a new romantic, they say. Lift up, breathe through the nose. Enjoy yourself, a little bit of play. It's like a confession. And then enjoy if you want. So play. It's beautiful.
My name's Jim.
That's it, exactly. My name's Jim, and I'm a new romantic. New Romantics Anonymous. Do join group if you wish. You do need to come with some sort of neck scarf or frilly cuffs. Breathe through your nose, jaw soft, eyes soft. Well done. Come down nice and slow. Did you ever dabble, Chris, in New Romantics? Yeah, I thought you did. Yeah. You can recognise. How about you, Jerry? Did you ever? Never dabbled. Never went near it. Good man. Stay that way. Sitting up. Breathe easy. Jaw soft. It did go a bit wrong, didn't it? New Romanticism in the end. Tarran. Next album was shit. All of that anyway. More on New Romanticism on my podcast. Jim Talks New Romanticism. Lean back. Breathe easy. Some of us drifted between New Romanticism and goth. Yeah, a little bit of goth. Who got your number, Chris? Breathe easy. You can extend a leg if you want. The pose is called Ubhaya Padangusthasana. You can extend another leg if you want. Ubhaya Padangusthasana means holding both big toes. So you've achieved your mission already. It's a massive mistake to think that success in yoga has anything to do with achieving a certain level of fluidity, flexibility and strength in a pose. It has only anything to do with absorption. So you're successful if your knees are bent or one leg straight or both are straight or whatever, if the position you're taking is one you can breathe into. Yeah. So you might end up like that, or you might end up with both, or you might end up with them together or apart. Ubhaya Padangusthasana. But keep soft, keep relaxed. Notice if there's any tendency in you, I'm sure there is, because there is in me, to sort of struggle. Okay, well done. Come down calm and slow. Soles of the feet together, knees apart. Baddha Konasana. And I like a little wiggle myself. Not just in Baddha Konasana, just generally every so often. But the wiggling you can do in Baddha Konasana can help extend the inner thigh. If you wiggle to one side, the inner thigh of the other can extend, and vice versa. So not only that, but if you wiggle, you can sometimes feel your sitting bones, and you can sometimes position them so they're further apart, just slightly. It feels like you can make them slightly further apart. That's very, very beneficial. So any kind of wiggling, moving that helps and shows up in the breath is good. One of my first yoga teachers was called Hazel. I can remember her face very well. She was probably in her late 70s, and this was in 1989. So I got a feeling Hazel might not be around still, but anyway, she used to teach this pose and do this with her legs and call it the butterfly. And I thought, that's lovely. Very nice. Then I trained, I trained in Nepal, in the Patanjali Yoga Center, and then I trained as an Iyengar teacher. And when I became an Iyengar teacher, they told me, don't you never do that butterfly thing. And so I stopped for about 10 years. And then I thought, actually, why not? Why not? Bless you, Hazel. So the point is, if it works, do it. And works means if it's absorbing. So if it's not absorbing, don't do it, or do it differently, or, mix it up with something else. And you never know, what's going to be the right thing until it's the right thing, But your breath is the affirmer. The breath tells you. That's what tells you it's the breath. Okay. Baddha Konasana is a pose that used to be called Bhadrasana in yoga texts, which means good. It's a really good pose. Bhadra. Okay, we're going to release slow and easy, because although it's good, so are other poses. We're all going to use a block, right? It doesn't matter if you don't normally use a block, you're going to use a block. And we're going to sit on the block with wide legs, and the corner of the block is going to come forwards, it's going to face forwards. So we're going to sit on the block with the legs generously placed, not as wide as you might be able to go. I mean, most people can't do the box splits, let's be honest. But if you can do the box splits, this is not it, right? The legs in Upavishta Konasana should only be wide enough that you could possibly reach your big toes without collapsing your spine. And you might think, no way can I reach my big toes without, some sort of machinery getting involved. You can bring your legs closer, but you might think, still no way. If you can't reach your big toes, no matter how close you bring your legs together, there's a solution. Don't reach them. Okay. So anyway, that gives you a distance, and none of us are going to reach the big toes anyway. Once we play with our distance, what we're going to do is cup our hands like that. Okay. Very good. Very good. And then turn your cupped hands back behind you, and that will externally rotate your shoulders. Lift your chest. Lift up from the inner groin, so there's light tone in the tummy. Some people call it Uddiyana Bandha, but Uddiyana Bandha is massively misunderstood because in a sort of consumerist capitalist world, we tend to think of things as success, dualistically, success and failure, can and can't, do and don't. So when we hear about Uddiyana Bandha, and we hear it's a sort of light drawing in and up, we kind of tend to bring in, either or, right? It's either or, it's either or. But actually, what we want is something yogic, integrating. So as the tummy draws in and up, there are reiterative waves. It's not a demand that we place on the body and then ignore what the body has to say back. It's a conversation. So you might start a conversation with someone, but you don't know where it's going to go. It's a conversation. That's what we want when we're doing yoga. Yes, tummy in and up. Then room for the body to say, well, it's too strong. I've still got something in me that I'm holding. I need to let go. And then this becomes meditative. The breath begins to release because we're not tense. We're not reaching out. Inhale, lift and turn towards your right foot and look towards your right toes and wait long enough for your toes to realize that they've been noticed. Because toes are a part of the body that have a sort of relatively low opinion of themselves, sadly. They're used to being shoved into socks, shoved into shoes, shoved under footwells, shoved under desks, ignored the whole day. They're just used to it. So they presume when you're looking that you must be looking somewhere beyond them, not at them. It takes them a while to realize. And then they start to go, what? Really? Me? And when they do that, they start to release the gripping that is a sign of their poor, sad oppression over all these decades. And they begin to relax. And that means the toes you begin to feel them. They begin to open like little sun rays. Can you think of your toes like little sun rays? Double dare you. No one has to know that you did this morning, that you thought of your toes like little sun rays. Okay, now lift. And it's okay, those toes know you've seen them. You can keep your energetic awareness with them as you bring your energetic awareness also to your other toes, your toes of your left foot. So firstly, breathe. That's number one, isn't it? Breathe. Huh? Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Wait for the toes to realize. It will take a while. They're like a sort of, like a loyal friend that just serves you without it's completely used to no recognition. Like parents are with teenagers sometimes. They're used to doing things with no recognition, unless it's a particularly advanced teenager, which do exist. Breathing through your nose. Okay, return to center. Now, I just want to reiterate that the corner of the block should just be facing forwards, only just showing, because the thighs should be free. The whole point of using this block is so your thighs are completely free. Then you draw the buttock flesh out and back, and we're going to just bring the fingertips to the floor, keeping the central channel spacious energetically. Central channel spacious energetically. Now, some people everyone will find, given long enough, that over time, and it might be so subtle you don't see much externally, but over time that the body will release. You shouldn't try and make the body go anywhere, and you shouldn't go anywhere out of habit. But through the breath and through time, little releases come by themselves. And if they do, fine, go forwards. We're not going to go any further forwards, even if you can, than about 45 degrees relative to the floor, because then the block becomes not useful. Does it the opposite of good then? But most of us aren't going to go to 45 degrees, that's too low, so most of us can sit up taller. It's all about the breath, nothing to do with your opinion, nothing to do with yoga books, nothing to do with my opinion. Just the breath. Which should be released as an indicator that you know what you need to know, which is this moment. Beautiful, well done. Excellent. Come up nice and slow and calm. And then hopefully you can bring your legs back together. You're not stuck there forever. Fingers crossed. Then fold over a quarter of your mat. So if you're in the outer ends of the room, it can be this side. If you're in Francis's row, the same as Francis is doing. So if you're outer rows, fold the bit of the mat nearest the outer wall. A quarter. So if you're in outer rows, if you're in this row, it should be that side. You've done perfectly there. But a quarter, most people do a third. No, sorry, I'm lying. It shouldn't be a quarter. It should be a third. Oh, what a liar. A third, which is much more than a quarter. Look how much mine's folded over. You need the same. You need a belt. We're going to do a practice from early Hatha Yoga texts. The commonly misused word Hatha Yoga, commonly mispronounced as Hatha Yoga. The first text started was a Buddhist text. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Your feet, therefore, should face into the midline of the room if you're on the outer margins of the room. Right? So if you're on this side, you should just change. I won't look at you in case you need to change, and then you will have got away with it. The block tips back a little bit. Right? Just tips back a little bit, the side away from me. Just tip it back. You got it. That's it. The side that's furthest from me tips back. You got your belt nearby. Okay, then you take the leg that's furthest from me. You move it, massage it, let it be soft. And then bring the foot back so it either comes to the top of the opposite thigh or the top of its own thigh in some cases. Doesn't suit everyone that. Either way, you sit up tall. Good job. And breathe. If you brought the heel to the top of its own thigh, that would have pulled the body back, so you'll have to turn it forward. And then we're going to take the strap and we're going to bring it around the foot and we're going to really establish. So I've got mine fairly short. You can have it long, short, middle length. It should be that you can lift up your this Madhya Nadi, the central channel, really tall, the Madhya Nadi. And not just tall, but soft. Right? Because we can make the back tall, but it should also be soft. is sometimes described the central channel as like a lotus stalk. So lotus stalks are made of plant material, and they're in water. So there's a softness to a lotus stalk, but it also has a hollow in the middle. So imagine a channel going up the front of the spine, and you want that open. It's really good. Occasionally, but not often, some people have very, very, very short legs and very, very, very long arms. They don't normally put it on their CV, but they do exist. So if you had very, very short legs and very, very long arms, you might find you can keep that central channel open and hold your foot. That's fine if that is the case. But the central channel should stay open and soft. Okay. Breathing easy, brain relaxed. So this is called Mahamudra in Hatha Yoga texts. There are 3 practices that really, in some ways, define, in the early texts before the Hatha Pradipika, define what Hatha Yoga is. And these 3 poses are Mahamudra, which we're doing now. And it's a practice of stretching and manipulating and opening the central channel. Then we can add on top Mahabandha, which is where the pelvic floor becomes buoyant. It's not tight. It's not mechanically drawn up. It's caused a lot of people a lot of problems, this misunderstanding of Mulabandha, because it's caused people to have hypertense pelvic floors. I won't go into all the details, but Mulabandha is connected with Uddiyana Bandha, the light drawing in and up of the tummy, but both of those are conversational. They're not monologues. We've all met people who monologue and we don't enjoy their company. Right? So when you're finding the Mula Bandha and the Uddiyana Bandha, the pelvic floor buoyancy and the tummy in and up, it's you don't lose softness. You don't lose the flow of the breath. The final part of the Mahabandha is Jalandhara Bandha. So the chest up and the chin down and the shoulder blades down too. Now the purpose of this Mahabandha is to push Kundalini, or as Buddhists sometimes call it Chandalini, into various parts of the central channel to awaken it and to negate habit in it and to pull us out of the channels either side of the central channel that represent our ordinary conditioned habitual modality. So this is a dynamic, and this is one of the meanings of the word hatha, is that it's dynamic. It literally means with force, hatha. So, or with dynamism. A dynamic way of doing what tantrikas do less dynamically. Okay, release. Slow and easy. Good job. It's a powerful practice. Bring the leg out. The last part, there's 3 parts to this practice. Mahaveda, it's the last. We're not going to do Mahaveda. There you go. I'll explain why in a minute. Tip the block the other way. Tip the block the other way. Sit up tall. Same thing. So you might recognize this in modern postural yoga as Janu Shirshasana. Same thing, you bring your leg back, heel into the top of the opposite thigh or the top of its own thigh in some cases. And then the pata, P-A-T-T-A, pata, around your foot. Breathing through the nose. Eyes soft, brain soft. Central channel open. And the central channel in various traditions runs all the way from low down, the pelvic floor, all the way up to a point actually either at the crown of the head, the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petal lotus, or above the crown of the head, 12 finger widths above. So up to you anyway. There's a vague orientation of the central channel. Just feel it. Play it like a lotus stalk in water. And breathe through your nose. So most of us staying with the strap is the right thing to do in terms of true purpose here, which is opening up the central channel. Add to the practice, if you wish, Mahabandha, buoyancy of the pelvic floor. It's like, I always think of it like a puppet being pulled up by strings. So the puppet has a lightness. If you look at puppets on strings, they look very light. So the pelvic floor is sort of gathered lightly. And the strings that hold it are the Uddiyana Bandha, the light, repeatedly reiterated in and up tone of the tummy. It's not superimposed in a sort of one-directional way. It's conversational. And finally, the Jalandhara Bandha, the chin and chest, are towards each other. And then, of course, breath. So think of this as energy body work. And energy body work is a visceral experience of what it's like to be in the middle. If you were into Shaivism, you'd call it union with Shiva. If you're into Buddhism, you'd call it resting in sky, big sky or blue sky mind. If you were into Vaishnavism, you'd call it resting in the Godhead, etc. Okay, come up. And if you weren't into any of them, you just call it, that's nice. Okay, now, although we're not going to do Mahaveda, we're going to do something like it. Now, Mahaveda, you can see Tibetans doing this still, and they often wear quite wonderful little sort of skirts to do it with. They jump up in the air, cross their legs into lotus position and land on the floor dynamically like that. And that pushes energy up the central channel. But we're not going to do that. You might be pleased to hear. God. But we're going to do something that does the same thing, that's based on the Hathabhyasa Padati. So we're going to lay on our back. So the Hathabhyasa Padati is the text. Scholars think this is the text that Krishnamacharya was referring to when he was referring to the Yoga Koranta. They can't find the Yoga Koranta. There is no text called that exists or ever has existed. But there is the Hathabhyasa Padati. And the word Koranta is mentioned in it. And anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's a text from the 17th century, late 17th century. And it features a pose called Harinasana, which is described like this. Stand up. Don't do this. Just stand up, it says, and kick up your heels and kick your own buttocks like a deer. So when deers jump, they sort of look like they're kicking their own buttocks. But we're going to do it laying on our backs. So pop your hands underneath your head, fingers interlaced. We're going to do this with alternate legs. So kicking your own buttocks with left leg, right leg, going as medial as you feel comfortable to, and lateral, and whatever, and at whatever pace you like, with hopefully with a certain degree of softness as well, a bit of a swing to the legs, perhaps using a bit of gravity. And this is our version of Mahaveda. So this pushing energy into the central channel, it's a practice that's pretty much come out of Shaivism and Buddhism, but from Buddhism into Hatha Yoga. And you can do it less dynamically, more dynamically. You can do it in one area or move it, up to you. And then change it to both heels at the same time, so rather than alternate. And obviously with due care, don't hurt yourself. Breathe easy. So there are parts of the body you should kick the heels into and parts that you shouldn't, obviously. So you'll know. And once that energy is moving, then let it slow down gradually. Slow it down, breathing through the nose. until it comes to a natural sort of stop externally, but you can feel the energy buzzing and fizzing internally. So it might slow down. And then let it change into the legs moving forwards, backwards, one towards you, one away with the knees bent. So it's a sort of cycling. And then begin to extend the range of that cycling until you extend the legs out to about 45 degrees with a little kick, gentle kick towards the end. Breathing through the nose. Gentle kick towards the end. Some people like to lift their heads up too for this. So if you want to, you can. It just brings a little bit more dynamism to the abdominals. Can be very healthy for the abdominals, but also for the quadriceps and the knees. Okay. Let it rest and then head down, feet down. Let me hear you take a deep breath in with the sigh-like exhale. Followed by another and another and another. If you can let 4 deep breaths flow through you, that would be wonderful, it would be perfect. Can you let 4 or even 5 deep breaths flow through you? If it ends up being 6 or 7, well, no problem there, you know. And if it ends up being that your breath flows for the rest of your life, you've just entered into Buddhahood. Because physiologically, a Buddha is someone who's resting in the knowledge of the here and now, and whose breath flows because of their profound levels of trust in the here and now. Walk your feet close to your bum. Still breathe freely. Keep your hands underneath your head. Lightly tone your tummy in a wave. It draws in and up. Lift your bum up. Lift your bum up. And then let it move. You might bounce your pelvis, sway your pelvis, tilt your pelvis. It's about what's appropriate to your body here and now. Sometimes dynamic movements, sometimes very gentle movements, sometimes circling, sometimes shaking, sometimes swaying. But we want overall to get a little bit more height with integration. With integration. That's what yoga means. The priority, therefore, is integration. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft, tongue soft. With integration. Floating back down. Feeling integration all the way. Integration at the pelvic floor, integration at the lower back. Once you land, I want us to take deep breaths. 2, 3, 4 or more. While taking them, notice the spontaneity in the body-mind, the fluidity. Then let your legs fall with your knees apart, your feet apart. Let them fall to one side, both the same side together. Just fall over to one side. Hands are still under your head. That can affect a pretty good stretch along various connective tissue chains. Having your hands still under your head means that the chains extend right the way through the back, so we can feel connections between chains like the quadriceps on the top leg, through to the latissimus dorsi on the back of the body. Huge chains of connection that the yogi breathes into, that she surrenders to. Return to center. Scoot the buttocks under. Let me hear you take a deep breath. Every time you take a deep breath, the psoas releases, the intercostals release, the diaphragm releases. Then the legs fall the other way. Same thing. Obs. And breathe through your nose. Meditative melting based on breath. Meditative melting of this whole chain. And the body is a mirror of our habituation. Our habituation is a mirror of our karma. all yoga traditions have an emphasis on karma. And so the release of karma can be done through the release of its effects, like tensions in the body. Okay, return calmly to center. Scoot the buttocks under. Release the hands from under your head. Stretch them out instead so that your elbows are shoulder height or a little higher. So your elbows are positioned like this. That's the position you want for the elbows. Shoulder height or higher. And just breathing into that sensation. So elbows out, a little bend at the elbow, more than 90 degrees, please. More than 90 degrees. Then lift up your feet and thighs. Let your thighs come towards your pelvis. Thighs come towards your pelvis so strongly that the back of your pelvis lifts up. The back of your pelvis lifts up. Then when your pelvis is lifted up, scoot the bum towards this side of the room. Scoot the bum towards this side of the room, and then legs go the other way. So pelvis one way, legs the other way. Let your legs come down towards the floor. They can hover or float. They come down towards the floor. If the back arm lifts a bit, no problem. Breathe into that back arm. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Arm soft. Breathing into the back arm. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. It's good to keep the knees up, I think. Use your breath to breathe the back arm back down. Use your breath to breathe the back arm back down. Coming up when you're ready, landing the feet. So put the feet back down on the floor. Scoot the buttocks under. Scoot the shoulder blades under by pressing into the back of the head. And then take 2 deep breaths. Or more. So really important to feel the in-between stations and poses. And then obviously we're going to do the same on the other side. So flex up the hips, scoot the buttocks the other way, that is away from this side of the room, and then the legs come down towards this side of the room. So buttocks one way or pelvis one way, legs the other. And as your legs drop down, draw the tummy in, lift the chest up. Breathe through your nose if you can. Breathe the back arm back down. Use your exhales to breathe the back arm back down. Or soft, breathe the back arm back down. Although the radiators are on, I realize that some of you are chilly. So I've put on this other radiator. If you wonder what that sound is, so it's other little, it probably won't make a blind bit of difference, but at least I'm trying. Good. Breathing the back arm back down. Inhaling to bring the legs back up. Land the feet on the floor. Scoot the buttocks under. Scoot the shoulder blades under. Let me hear the deep breath. The deep breath. 2, 3, 4. Deep breaths. And enjoy. I hope you can enjoy just this moment of surrender. I hope you can enjoy this moment of surrender. Yeah. We often describe it as surrender to the goddess, and the goddess takes many forms, including Tara. It's useful to have a personification of these energies, this energy of love, compassion. Roll right over when you're ready. You might not be ready for ages. You might be resting in the arms of the goddess, as it were, and never want to leave. But when you're ready, roll over. We're going to come onto hands and knees and into Ardha Mukha Svanasana, just because we ain't done one yet. And it feels a bit naughty not having done a down face dog. So we're going to do a down face dog. So you come up when you're ready. Make sure your hands are equidistant from the sides of the mat. Pad your paws into a deeper weave with the mat. It's a common misconception that the heels should go down, where the heels actually should go backwards. That does bring them a little closer to the floor sometimes, but it is a different imperative and it affects the body differently. If you think that your heels should go down, there's a strong chance that you'll pull that length out of the lower back
but we want the lower back to keep the length. So think of the heels going back and the groins going up, the inner groins going up, which is a process that takes time. And many of us are tight in the hamstrings, so we need a bit of time. Push the energy through the lower back repeatedly. Open the inner armpit, open the outer armpit, open the under armpit. Inner armpit, breathe it. Outer armpit follows, they're both happening together. Under armpit, if you divide the armpit into top and bottom, the under armpit extends towards the legs. Great. Okay, come down slow and calm to a regular kneeling position, Vajrasana. Rest one hand on top of the other, breathe through your nose. Take deep breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, buttocks relaxed. Vajrasana, Vajra. Vajra in the Vedas was originally the weapon of Indra, and then later, partly due to Greek influence, probably, Indra adopts the lightning bolt instead. Originally, a Vajra is a mace, a big sort of mace, but then it becomes a lightning bolt. And then later, Tantric Buddhism takes up this word Vajra to represent a sort of instant awakening, is just because awakeness is always there. Like a flash of lightning sort of, illuminates everything. So awakeness is always there. It's aware, it's there right now. And all we got to do is just not get caught up in the distractions of habitual modalities that we can avoid by moving the body, in ways that feel fluid instead of kind of caught, and breathing freely. Take your knees a little way apart. Your toes are touching but not overlapping. We're going to come forward super slow so that the groins drop as we move forwards. So it's a discipline. So hopefully at first, you only need to use your one finger to come forwards because you're not falling forwards. Right? And then gradually you let the hands cup, but you're always focused on the back of the pose. The sort of meditative softening. And that's what conditions are any moving forwards. The softening of the groins. So really take time. Avoid bringing your head down too quick. And when you do bring your head down, let it be the forehead. If it does come down, it might, if you're really listening to the body, sometimes it takes such a long time for the melting that the head might not even reach the floor. Even though it could, we might abstain from that for a while. Coming up slow, just the way you went down, slow and easy. We're going to take, if you've got a brick block, we're going to take a brick block
to sit on. If you haven't got a brick block, you can use regular blocks, short end forwards, and maybe a couple of those. And also, I should say that not everyone is comfortable in this pose anyway, so you can sit in a different position. It's Siddhasana for those for whom it's comfortable. That's heels aligned with each other and with the midline of the body. And buttock flesh drawn out and back. Some people find it very, very useful to use a blanket under the shins, especially if the knees are up a little bit. Blanket just placed under the shins. Chest up. We're going to practice 3 rounds of Brahmari breathing. Brahmari is the name of the goddess of the bees. I really like Brahmari as a goddess of the bees because when you see her pictorially represented, she literally is made of bees. She's like, just like a person made of bees, which is kind of cool. What I think I like about that image is I like bees because they're well, cute and furry, but also that her body is sort of not the limit of herself. You know, the bees kind of, anyway, that's what I like about it. This is the practice Brahmari, which is where you make the sound of a female bee. And if you're like me, you might think, I don't know the difference between a male and female bee, but apparently that's just what happens when you do this. Don't do it yet, just watch. You're going to close your eyes, don't press hard. You're going to close the tragus, the tragi, these cartilaginous flaps on the ears. You're going to take a deep breath in and out through open nostrils, and then partially closing the nostrils for inhale and exhale. 3 rounds. 1 round is in an inhale and an exhale. We take the breath in through these partially closed nostrils, and we breathe out through partially closed nostrils, but with a hum. And until you breathe out. And I think you'll agree that sounds exactly like a female bee. So when you're ready, 3 rounds, start with the deep breath in and out through open nostrils, and then it's partially closed nostrils for 3 Brahmari rounds. And then you release your hands when you're ready. I should have warned you, that's intensely calming. In case you didn't want to be calm today. So, you should have told me I wanted to be stressed out today. Sorry. So, just have to go with it now. It's intensely calming. And probably the best thing to do when you're that calm is just flop down onto the floor for Shavasana, but make sure you're warm. Some blankets and etc. Some support under your head, probably. The mistake that I commonly see in Shavasana is people bring their legs too wide apart and their arms too close together. So watch out for that mistake. If you want another blanket, here I am. Anyone want another blanket? Don't be shy. No? Anyone else? Another? You can have 2 if you want. Yes. Wise, very wise. My pleasure. Anyone else? Don't be shy. They look nice and soft, don't they? There you go. I knew I could lure you. Well, I feel like apologizing for the cold, but it's not. Yes, of course. It's not my fault that it's cold, but, I apologize on behalf of the British weather. Pleasure. So make sure you're warm, your shoulder blades are scooted under, your palms face up. We do find this in the 4th text on Hatha Yoga, which is a Vaishnava text. The Vaishnavas are the ones that wrote the Bhagavad Gita, by the way. And in this Vaishnava text, they tell us the following. Find a place that you can be on your own, where you don't have to be anybody in particular. You don't have to be anybody's brother, sister, uncle, auntie, employer, employee, friend, neighbor, member of society, member of a social group. Don't have to be anybody in particular, nothing. And it says, once you found that place, lay on your back as if you were dead with your mouth facing the sky. With limbs completely loose. With limbs completely loose. It tells us that the purpose of the practice is Laya Yoga, Laya. A word that can mean dissolving, dissolution. It can mean absorption, and it can even mean camouflage. The purpose is to dissolve, to merge, to be indistinguishable from the field